We've got some depth charts out that we need to take a little bit of a peek in. There's not a lot of surprises. It's mostly the who's, but the biggest question is where will the surprises come from? Because there's at least a couple on these depth charts.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for swinging on through here to make this your first listen. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now. A new customer can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 hauler is a winner. Head on over to FanDuel.com to get to rocking and rolling. We get to jump right into this conversation of the depth chart, right? There's been a couple variations that have come out. There's been a surprise or two mixed in there. Obviously, we are live here from J.R. Murphy's before they get business rocking and rolling on the day. I wanted to talk a little bit about the depth charts that have come out because there was a couple of surprises, especially whenever you look at like the wide receiver competition. There is going to be some battles, and we still have to make a little bit of room for the incoming freshmen. So it'll be extremely intriguing to follow the biggest storylines when you have this much talent. From a quarterback perspective, right, we all know what Drew Mestemaker brings to the table. The question is always going to be, is Grant Jordan going to be that solidified number two? From a locker room perspective, it definitely seems that way. It appears that way. But behind him in the spree game, you had Luke Tepes, 5 for 12, ended up throwing himself a touchdown. Brody Veers went 7 of 7 for 70 yards. I think the intrigue with Grant Jordan is going to be superseded at times by some of the athletic ability of Brody Veers. I think Brody Veers is somewhat of an extension of what we were likely to get out of a Haas Haney. But now he gets to wait his turn. He gets to learn from Drew Mestemaker, the same individual that was able to learn under Eric Morris and bring this very talented show from North Dallas all the way here to Stillwater, Oklahoma. But when you look at the running back room, right, there's a lot of intrigue there. You know what you have in Caleb Hawkins, an individual that could come in and likely still at the Big 12 level, rush for 1,200 yards. But behind him is going to be a big factor. I think Katie Batman Jones, athletically, you have that thunder and lightning packaging. I think he could emerge at some point in time throughout the course of the season. But for the here and the now, is it Trey Page? Trey Page coming over from Tarleton State. He does seem to be somebody that was popping off a decent amount in the spring. But you also have William Mason from right up the road at UCO. He's probably more of a power back, right? He'll utilize kind of that Elijah Collins, Trent Howland kind of role. But even after that, that's where the biggest questions. And we've seen multiple times. You're one injury away, especially from the running back position, at a place where you have at least some semblance of a claim to RBU, that if you have a couple guys go down, how big is that going to be for Drew Mestemaker? Not only do you have to have somebody that's really good at pass protection, which is probably the biggest layer of the onion that will still yet to be peeled, all of these guys can rush the football. We're going to need some help. We already know that we have some injuries in the offensive line. We weren't fully healthy in the spring game. The likelihood of getting everybody back by the end of fall camp obviously is pretty high. But while you're trying to build that depth, you're looking at the running back position, especially knowing that Drew Mestemaker needs a little bit of assistance, knowing that we could potentially be using a running back to chip before getting out on the passing route concepts. That is going to be crucial, in my opinion, for Oklahoma State this year. It's going to take a little bit of time for the cohesion to get all across the roster. So the running back position, helping Drew Mestemaker in a multitude of ways, one of those obviously being able to buy more time, I think will be who ends up being RB2 and RB3 as the season progresses. With this kind of offense, with this kind of firepower and talent, I don't even necessarily think that it's going to be contingent upon just talent. It's going to be partially about who can help Drew Mestemaker the best in the backfield while everybody's, getting this cohesive unit put together. Wide receiver, you have Justin Bowick coming over from Illinois. Tried and true, your bona fide Z position. He falls in that Justin Blackman, Dez Bryant kind of role. James Washington, Tylan Wallace, Tay Martin. Justin Bowick is going to be that. Obviously, at 6'3", 220 pounds, we have needed somebody like that. We just mentioned the RBU conversation. I think the wide receiver belongs to Ohio State right now, but there is a claim to be had in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And Wyatt Young is somebody that probably doesn't get talked about enough. So when we talk about these surprises in the polls, I think Israel Polk is another individual that has that big body frame that could fall in that Tay Martin kind of classification. But if you look over here at the RLADS depth chart, I did find it slightly surprising to see Rodney Harris is on the R lads. And obviously Pistols Firing did this as well a couple weeks ago. And there's a little bit of a discrepancy here and there between R lads, but that's what we're doing. We're covering the differentiations. And I think when you look at the R lads version of the depth chart, you have Wyatt Young, Chris Barnes, Justin Bowick, right? That's the front line, the who's who. That makes a ton of sense. Israel Polk, Miles Coleman, I think those individuals also make a lot of sense. But Rodney Harris II being here, yes, coming on for Ohio, more of a possessions wide receiver, so limited to some degree to what Justin Bowick could also provide. But we need to look out for Matrell Lopez, right? Matrell Lopez, as a true freshman this previous season, would have been thrust into the lineup in a multitude of games if he hadn't have broken the finger in his hand. Matrell Lopez last year likely had some of the best hands on the team, if not the best hands on the team. We should see a pretty smooth carryover this year. You're getting a healthy version of Matrell Lopez. You're getting another year in the system, strength and conditioning and everything for Matrell. I think this is going to be a big year for him. I don't see how we're going to be able to keep him on the field. Again, whenever you have a quarterback that can put it in pockets, in areas that not everybody else can. Left tackle, Braden Nelson, makes sense if obviously healthy. I think whenever you're talking about Ashton Lepo, that is somebody that can play both sides. And you have some versatility here with Jacob Sexton as well, because Jacob Sexton could slide to tackle. He seems pretty comfortable at guard, and it seems like that's where he's going to gravitate towards this upcoming season. But he does have the ability. As long as Ashton Lepo is healthy, I'm not all that worried about the left tackle spot. The right tackle position, Joseph Hansom is a very, very, very good option here. This is a name that's kind of been creeping up the more these spring camps and going into fall camps has progressed. Tyler Mercer is going to be a pivotal piece. We just talked about how important it's going to be for the backfield to help chip, to help give Drew Messmaker a little bit more time before they get out into the flats or try to get up into the seams. We're going to have the same conversation about the center spot. And this might be the most undervalued transfer that we got, because not only does Tyler Mercer have a lot of starting experience, a ton of snaps at North Texas before making his transition this previous year to KU, but he played a very limited number of games at KU, which is why he was able to retain this red shirt. He is coming in from a vocabulary standpoint, already knowing precisely what Drew Messmaker and this offense is supposed to look like. And he's also seen the Big 12 with KU. So I think he's going to be able to take the knowledge, his number of snaps from North Texas, and instantaneously make that a certified strong point. Being able to call out the blitzes and helping to shift the protections, that's going to be massive for everybody in the backfield with Drew Messmaker. So this frontline offensive line, it's a big deal. It's the second string that's always going to be a concern. You have Sean Torgerson. You have Desmond Magaya that also came over from North Texas. Jacoby Sanders is probably somebody we haven't seen enough of. Louis Canepa coming over this previous year for what New Mexico State was one of the top-rated guards in the transfer portal. Unfortunately, Louis Canepa had some injuries, so we didn't get to see him this previous season. If you have somebody like Louis Canepa, we talk about the number of snaps. If he's a backup in any capacity, that probably is a good thing for the starting offensive lineman. Because coming into the season, I think most of us presumed that if Louis Canepa was coming back, it was because Louis Canepa was going to have a really good shot at having a starting spot. I don't know that that's the case, but I also know that when you're talking about having a couple injuries that did happen in the spring game, that secondary unit is going to be huge for Oklahoma State in this upcoming season. Defensive end, Jaleel Johnson, Deshaun Brown, Malik Charles. I think those are all going to be massive, additions for Oklahoma State. James Williams, the guy coming over from Florida State that had a ton of success in Nebraska before being a Seminole. You've got him probably at the top of the NIL for what the Cowboys are bringing him. Therefore, the expectations are going to be extremely high. I think it's very fair to say that there's going to be a lot of differentiation between Big 12 play and ACC play from a week-to-week basis. And I'm not sitting here saying that the Big 12 is the bee's knees for all of college sports, but what I am saying is from top to bottom, Big 12 is probably the best place in the viewership landscape. If you're into college football, I don't necessarily think it matters what conference it is. As long as it's a good brand, it's a good product to see. That's what the Big 12 provides. All right, let's put a bow on this before we get to segment 2 here. I think linebackers are still going to be a strength. The fact that Tate Romney is coming over to Oklahoma State, which I think the assumption was he was going to be a leadership kind of guy. But that presence in the locker room is already seeming to show dividends. I think Carl Young is somebody that has now kind of slid over to play a little bit of that defensive end spot. We talk a lot about the Colin Olivers and what guys could potentially be that guy. Carl Young does fit that bill to a T. Plus, Carl Young already came in at 6'4", 225, 230. So from a frame perspective, he's going to be able to pack on the pounds and do a tremendous amount as we see him grow. Defensively, the question's always going to be the back end, right? You have a LaDainian Fields, who is one of the best in the country, not just the Big 12, in returning production and limiting the offensive capabilities for the wide receivers. Mose Phillips should be a massive addition that has obviously come over from Mizzou. You got Mo Horn that also came from at Texas Tech. More of a nickel guy, more of a package dude at Texas Tech. But again, we're talking about an exorbitant number of snaps for a crew that Eric Moore seems very confident in. Right, there is a system in place that has been really, really good for him. I don't see it changing. Look at the special teams. It seems like Sam Keltner is going to be a pretty big leg. Alachi Pazaban is somebody that's probably going to average over 40, 41-ish yards per punt when you're flipping the field position with this kind of offense. Right, the only downside to Oklahoma State's high-flying attack is you do put yourself in a precarious position occasionally with like 3 and outs. But you have to be able to flip the field. And I do think that we were really good in getting some of these special teamers that can do just that. Not only from a tackling perspective, but flipping the field. Like, it's been a little bit since we've had a punter, I think, that could change the complexity of the game. I hated seeing Hudson take his talents to Auburn. But at the same point in time, I understand that this is a little bit of a different time. It's a little bit of a different system. We're here to put points up on the board. So, let me know down in the comments section, what are your thoughts about some of the depth charts that you've seen, whether it be pistols firing, our lads. There is going to be some more surprises. We've still got some of these freshmen to come in, and the young guys like Matrell Lopez and Cam Powell still haven't exactly been able to burst on the scene yet, but it does feel like an inevitability with the cohesion that was able to come over from North Texas and slide in pretty smoothly already. I don't want to necessarily say it was effortless, but pretty darn close. Speaking of effortless, we got to get with the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. FanDuel is the ticket for everybody out here. The NBA playoffs is here. The action is heating up. You've got the Pistons going into a Game 7. You've got the Thunder absolutely dominating. They feel like they could be on a collision course. Anybody on a collision course with the Thunder is probably not going to come out so hot. But I would love to see a former Cowboy get a chance to take on the Thunder, and you need to capitalize on this monetary position that FanDuel is giving all of us. With the playoffs here, you can bet just $5, get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet's a winner. You're going to love using FanDuel, especially during the playoffs, because everything you need is right in one place. You can check the stats, the trends, the matchups, all before you make any of your picks. Whether you're looking at a player prop or you're following your favorite stars, it's going to add another level of excitement simply because of your investment. It's a really easy app to navigate. It makes the playoffs much more simplistic, fun, engaging from start to finish. So head on over to FanDuel.com to get started today. Get with the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. FanDuel, of course, where you can bet just $5. Get $150 back in bonus bets if your $5 hauler is a winner. Get with FanDuel today where you can play your game with FanDuel. All right, rolling along here, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening on the diamond right now. Right before we got on, so obviously right across the way here, we're right here at RJ Murphy's. Right down the road, we do have Cowgirl action happening live. We have Cowboy action happening live. And right before we went live here, both squads were winning. The Cowgirls are up 7-2 on Stanford. It was actually very, very impressive. Yes, we did, have some opportunities against Stanford earlier on in the year. This is a night and day different ball club. After what they did yesterday, is Eastern Illinois of the same caliber as Oklahoma State? No, obviously not. But in tournament season, you have to take care of business. That's exactly what the Cowgirls did. Now, also, before we went live here, Cowboys were, I don't want to necessarily cruising per se against Arizona, but they were doing pretty good. Aiden Miola hit a 3-run bomb right before we got rocking and rolling here. So is this one of the best seasons already for Josh Holiday. I think a lot of us revert back to 2017, right? You go into the final week of the season and you have to go essentially undefeated to get into the Big 12 tournament. And you get into the Big 12 tournament and you make a magical, massive run. I think it's instances like that is why Josh Holiday is still in the position that he's in. You're always going to be able to make the argument that the standards at Oklahoma State should be super regionals every other year-ish, right? I mean, you would think with Obrate, the objective is to have supers every single year. Now, I understand sometimes that's not exactly feasible. But regardless of, how far you fall on the line of we need better at Oklahoma State and Josh Holiday may not be living up to postseason expectations, you got to tip your cap and you got to look at what's happening and feel like it's safe to presume that there's a decent number of people that were sipping on the Josh Holiday haterade. And even myself have said several times that I do not like the postseason outcomes all that often under Josh Holiday. But what he's doing right now with a very depleted pitching staff is wild. I mean, you're coming into this week. If you sweep Arizona, you win the Big 12 tournament, there's a really good shot at you hosting. And I think at this point in time, given the situation we were in, a month and a half ago when we were in 11th place and we were trying to fight, scratch, and claw to get to that 8th place, we have gone since then and turned into a miraculously offensive-led ball club, which, as Tom Holliday's mentioned on air, that's what had to happen. Like, Josh had to challenge the team and say, listen, guys, the pitching is not going to be what we need it to be. And until we get it there, the offense is going to have to carry the day. The banger bust mentality, it frustrates me sometimes. But the beauty of it is when it works, it's a masterclass. It's a masterclass of the ball leaving the yard. So no matter what the seat position was for Josh Holiday coming into the season and how it kind of kicked off, maybe wasn't great. You could see that Josh Holiday's seat was probably getting at least a little bit warm. You can't really say that anymore. Like, I feel like we're in a position now that if you get in a regional and you make any significant noise, again, I hate that we're considering lowering the standards, but when you take it all into consideration, it's hard to deny that this has been a masterful job by Josh Holiday. And what is it going to take? What is it going to take for all of us collectively to breathe a sigh of relief and sit back and say, you know what? Josh Holiday did exactly what he was supposed to do this year. I mean, this team offensively is talented enough to make something happen in regionals. I think this team is good enough to get to supers. That's where the question is, though. Is that good enough? For this season, with the way things have progressed, I do think that if you win a regional and you simply make a super this year, as much as it pains me to say this, that's a success. And that is Josh Holiday performing one of his better feats since he's been the head coach at Oklahoma State. The talent is never going to be a question. The amount of potential major leaguers on the roster every single year is probably never going to be a question. The ability to get the top talent to Obrate, again, never really going to be a question outside of Titus Hawk, but we could do a whole complain fest about that one. Nonetheless, when you're looking at Oklahoma State baseball and Cowgirl softball, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. The fact that Josh Holiday has done what he's done and gone from 11th to, 4th, 5th with a shot of finishing in the top 3 with some chaos around us, it does feel like we're going to probably get in. And as we said before, chicks dig the long ball, so do the people who do the voting. Facilities are important when it comes to the hosting, but the kind of brand of ball you play is important as well. And what's great for viewership is the ball leaving the yard over and over and over. I'm telling you, the ideal matchup would be Oklahoma State versus Georgia. Like, those are the two best teams in the country when it comes to the ball leaving the yard. If you put Oklahoma State, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but if you put us in an Athens regional, which I know probably unlikely since we were just there this previous season, but to me, that's the best ticket. The best ticket to Oklahoma State, ensuring a super regional trip, would be to go to Georgia. But again, if you're playing like this offensively, the location may not even matter, right? And as it pertains to the Cowgirls, actually, you know what? We're going to kind of break down the road because NCAA just talked a little bit about the tournament field. Surprise, surprise, NCAA put on social media in a video that they have the Cowgirls making quite a run here. So going back to Oklahoma City, according to some, it seems to be a very realistic possibility that we should start looking forward to. And why not? With the way that they're playing right now, if you can ride Ruby Malin all the way to the sunset and her arm won't fall off, then you might as well do it because it is working and this team is clicking at the right time. So we'll put a bow on this thing and we'll skedaddle on out of here so Murphys can kind of get their people flooding in the building. So, yeah, let's finish this thing up here. But, of course, before we do, you got to be part of the Everydayer Club, a.k.a. it's time to become a regulator. Of course, you're going to be able to get this show ad-free every single day. You'll also get an exclusive audio-only version of not this show, but a Locked On show. It's a special treat. Make sure that you go check it out. In addition to that, you'll be lumped into the members-only Discord, so you'll have direct access to be able to ask questions. We can talk about some of the fun things, happening around campus, happening around recruiting, happening in this preview to fall camp. So, go be part of the Everydayer Club today. Go check the show notes below. Of course, you can also go to lockedonoklahomastate.supercast.com. Come be a regulator, a.k.a. come be part of the Everydayer Club with Locked On Oklahoma State. All right, so the road to Oklahoma City. According to, I cannot believe I forgot her name. But I'm sure some of you have seen this. It was revolving around X quite a bit. But this fine young lady put together her field. And as you can see by the picture up on the screen, she has Oklahoma State going back to the College World Series, going back to Oklahoma City. Not only that, but obviously winning the regional. And as we're playing right now, it seems very plausible that we're going to dominate this regional. Again, you don't want to speak too soon, but what we're doing at the moment, what we just did yesterday, this is the best brand of softball we've essentially been playing all year. And we didn't necessarily come into this limping, but we didn't have a great Big 12 tournament. We did not have a remarkable showing by any stretch of the imagination. So to see this graphic and to hear her talk about the Cowgirls having a very, very, very good road to what is Omaha for softball, it makes you happy. In addition to that, if we win this one, we likely end up in the Nebraska regional, and you'll have Jordy Ball from against Ruby Malin. If you're talking about viewership and eyeballs and games of importance, that'll be right up there with the best of them. And if Ruby Malin continues to perform the way she has over the last month, there's no doubting this Cowgirl Ball Club. And because of our ability to already beat Nebraska is a proven commodity, they're going to be out for blood, right? They're going to do everything physically possible to make it a difficult proposition, of course. But you have to feel pretty confident with the way this team's playing, knowing that you've already had success against Nebraska. But this is also, again, why you have this regional, especially from a hosting standpoint. And Kenny Gajewski did cover that a little bit. It was because of the top 10, top 15 quad one wins in the beginning of the season. And that also did include some very massive games for the Cowgirls against Nebraska. So it comes down to likely who has the best depth in the pitching staff. And that is a concern. But they're likely going to have to do the same thing we are. While we ride Ruby Malin until her arm falls off, proverbially speaking, of course, they're likely going to have to do the same thing with Jordy Ball from. But we were having success last time. And even with OU, when she was at OU, there was never a moment per se where Cowgirls were worried about it, concerned about it, scared for it. It was a moment that we were continuously embracing, which is why the last time we had an opportunity to play a 3-game series with OU, we had some success. There's a reason that Kenny Gajewski was able to, leave. When OU and Texas left, there was a sour taste in their mouth because of the success of Oklahoma State. And it feels like we're kind of getting back to that. And we need this. We need another trip back to Oklahoma City to get the recruiting back to where it needs to be. I'm sure I'm not the only one out here that has reservations on whether Carrie Eberly is just the perfect fit. I love her as a coach and obviously even more as a pitcher. Let me know in the comment section. Color me crazy if you must. But is Ruben Malin the only one that's really, truly developed? I've probably asked this question on social media. Let me know down in the comment section. Am I over worrying about Kerry Eberle? Has there been development out of Presley Downing and Riley Crandall that maybe, a little bit more difficult to see? So, of course, let me know in the comment section. And then again, for the Cowboys, I do think that you got to put a bow on this Arizona series, of course. I do think you have to win the Big 12 tournament. But if you do win the Big 12 tournament and we're anywhere near 18-19 because of O-rate, because chicks dig the long ball and so do viewers, we're going to have an outside shot at hosting. I think that if it came down to Oklahoma State or let's say Missouri State, it's going to be Oklahoma State. Right? And I'm just using Missouri State as an example. Grand Canyon's another team that has been in that position before. Dallas Baptist has been there before. East Carolina. But some of those teams have gotten robbed before simply due to facilities. This is the beauty of O-rate. This is the beauty of Josh Holiday having this team going at the right time, getting hot at the right time. It's more important, I'd say, in basketball and baseball than some of the other sports. Momentum is a thing in every sport. But I think because of some of the individual nature of baseball, it's mano a mano. Yes, it's a team sport, but it is you in the box against the guy on the bump and vice versa. When Oklahoma State is performing at this level, I do think that you have to give Josh Holiday a little bit of grace. And I also think that if you do see this Cowboy ball club go win a regional and make any super regional anywhere, no matter what happens after that, we got to give Josh Holiday a little bit of breathing room, because this has been a crazy turnaround. When it didn't look to be a feasible option, it felt like this was the year that Oklahoma State might actually be competing for 8th place. This was the year that Josh Holiday might not get the team to the postseason. It was that ugly not that long ago. So the quickness of the turnaround is astronomical and insanely impressive. So, Boo. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. Obviously, come stop by J.R. Murphy's. The orange palm trees are back. They're supposed to be here. The fact that they were different colors is crazy. So make sure that you guys pop on in here. They're going to be opening up here in a couple hours. Come get your drink on. Come celebrate Cowboy baseball, Cowgirl softball. Let's see if we're both going to hold on to the dub here before we leave. Let me get on here live. Are we still eating them both? Yep. All right, cool deal. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. I love coming on back home and doing these on-site shows. So feel free to let me know down in the comment section what you think about the prospects for both Oklahoma City for the ladies and Omaha for the Cowboys. Until next time, that's all we're going to have for this one. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. As always, like it if you liked it, dislike if you didn't, that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast and people out there. You're everything that makes this work. I greatly appreciate what you do. So go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave them reviews. All right, y'all. Later, taters.